All right, so we are going to take some notes about the Renaissance today. So you guys each have a new assignment that's called Renaissance Notes. It's kind of, well, guys, I've already said it's very long. I don't think we're going to do it all. It'll be okay. We're just going to read about it. At some points, we're just going to read and go through the slides. We're not going to type anything down. And it's not like you're copying it word for word. You're just filling in random words that are even highlighted for you in the slides. So it does get pretty easy. I bet you could probably copy and paste from the slides too. So let's scroll down to social studies. Open up the Renaissance notes. So you need to open up the Google document in one slide. And see, the thing is, on this one, I'm not going to go back and forth and type in. Yeah, I'm not going to type in the words at the same time. I will have it presented on my screen. So those of you that are in class, you can have the Google document open in front of you and be looking at it on the TV up front. Those of you online, I would suggest you make your windows smaller and have the Google Meet open on one half of your screen and the Google document open on the other half. So you can see the presentation and just type in the stuff. You use this thing up at the top right here. It makes it smaller. And you can like size this whatever size you want, and then you can pull this out and put it on the other side so you can see both at once. So those of you online, I would suggest you do this so you can see the Google Meet on one side of your screen and the notes on the other side so that you can just copy down the correct parts of it, right? I can't get this back in the thing. Oh well. So I am presenting my screen, correct? You guys can all see this. So you guys need to have the notes open here. And I'm just going to kind of start going through and reading through these slides, and we're going to talk about the Renaissance, and you guys will just type out. I think that the words are red and underlined that you need to type in. So we are just going to get going, go through as much as we can. If you fall behind, you have both of these that you can look at later. If I'm going too fast for you, you're more than welcome to just sit and listen instead, but you still need to at least make sure you finish up the notes later with the copy and pasting later. So if you would rather listen to the information, copy and paste later, that's fine. If you want to just focus on the notes. So, PowerPoint, let's go through it. Oh, okay, nope, not that much. So, okay, you know what? I'm going to open the PowerPoint in a different way. You're going to open it in slides? Yeah, so I'm going to go to my drive and open it up. You guys don't have it as slides because we didn't want you guys to be able to type and change them. But I have the original, so I'm going to open that instead. Can you guys see it up there okay? Well, I guess let me pull it up first. Hang on. All right, so. Here we go. Is this good? Can we see that all right? That's as good as it's going to get for those of you that are in person. If you guys are in person, you need to move up to see it because you can't read it from that far. Go ahead and sit up in one of the front desks. That's fine. So here we go. The Renaissance. Or what was the Renaissance? This is the first part. It's a time of revival, which literally means rebirth. Europe was devastated after the Dark Ages and the Black Death. So they went through all the Crusades. They lost half of their population because of the Crusades. And then the Black Death came. What was the Black Death? The plague. And that killed a ton of people too. So they really lost a ton of their population. There just was not a lot going good for them. So the Renaissance was a time where they just were given new life and were able to just kind of rebuild everything that they had lost. Okay? Next slide. Or is that too fast? Are we good? That's a nice picture of what looks to be some burning bodies. I don't really know exactly what the picture is. Yeah. It doesn't look great. And then we have confidence in the church had been shattered. So people that put all of their faith into religion During that time of the Crusades and stuff, when they were losing, they didn't feel like they had religion on their side, and it just wasn't good. So people began to focus on themselves as individuals rather than on religion and religion being able to help them. But during this time, society was becoming more secular, which I have to look up what that word means. It's been a while. It has to do with something religious. Secular. Let me look it up. Hmm? Yeah. So secular means that it doesn't have to do with religion. It's something that's not religious. So people are going from being extremely religious and relying on religion for everything to more of like an individual mindset of relying on things that are not as secular all the time. All right, ready for the next one? Yeah. So this is where we were at, where people are starting to become they're starting to rely on religion less, right? They're not as confident in religion anymore. Okay. Alrighty. About 30 more seconds to copy these ones, and we'll go to the next one. All right. Next one. The Renaissance was an intellectual movement that focused on a rebirth of classical Roman and Greek art, architecture, and literature. So we during the times before, so we went from ancient times, right, where we were learning about Greek and ancient Rome and all of those cool things, right, where they were kind of coming up with new inventions and things like that, building really cool things. And then we moved into the Middle Ages where they were kind of in a lot of cities, really smushed together. They didn't build a lot of cool things. And then the Crusades happened, and a lot of things were burnt down or broken, couldn't be repaired. So the Renaissance is after that time period of the Crusades, where they kind of go into like, we're going to start thinking about things more. We're going to rebuild using the old Roman and Greek stuff that we used to really enjoy. We're going to use that to build new societies and move forward. Make a little bit of sense? All right. Ready for the next slide? Okay. The Renaissance was based around humanism. So humanism is the thought system that places prime importance on the individual instead of a divine being. What is a divine being? What does that mean? No, that's the individual. What's a divine being? A divine being is like a god. So instead of basing their thought processes on, I have to do this to please the religion and do this because it's a religious thing to do, they started to place more importance on themselves as people versus I'm going to do it for the church. Yeah. So they stressed the goodness of humans and encouraged people to seek rational or thought out ways to understand and solve problems around the world. So instead of just doing it because the church says too, they started thinking about things a little bit more and didn't always do stuff based on what the church thought they should do at this point. That's what humanism is. They start believing in themselves. Yoshi, go back to your stuff. Put the drawing away. All right. Okay, ready for the next one? All right. I might say things wrong here. Petrarch was called, that's a man, called the father of humanism. So he developed the concept of humanism. He was a poet who popularized love stories and poems which placed the emphasis on the individual and not the Almighty or God. Oops, too far, sorry. So Petrarch, he's a person who kind of started the idea that people should focus a little bit more on themselves versus the church. Nowadays, we have a better balance between church and yourself, right? People can be religious, but also realize that they need to do things for themselves and not just because the church tells them to, right? So that is what it's like now. Okay, about 20 more seconds? 30 more seconds? I don't know. All right. Next one. I can't read that. Where did the Renaissance begin? Is that your next section? Where did the Renaissance begin? Yep. Okay, so now we're in the next part. That's really boring. I know. I don't like the thing behind it. Yes, you have a good picture behind it. So this one says the Italian peninsula never united or came together during the Middle Ages. Instead, several independent city-states developed. Remember, what's a city-state? What's this the second or number 2 one? Doesn't mean like the capital of a city? No, a city-state is like a city. No, it's just a city. It's what they used to call towns and cities. This one? Called the Father of Humanism. Good? Oh. Okay, so the Italian peninsula united people, or never united, came together during the Middle Ages. They just created different towns across Europe, right? Milan, which is a city in Italy, is one of the richest cities that controlled the trade through the Alps, which is a set of mountains. Florence is another city in Italy. It's controlled by a very wealthy de Medici family. They became great patrons of the arts, which means that they really wanted art to be like really big during the Renaissance. And then Venice is a location on the Adriatic, which is a sea, like an ocean, part of an ocean, that attracted trade from all over the world. Have you guys ever seen pictures of Venice, Italy? Mm-hmm. It's gorgeous. I would love to visit Venice. Which part? I said a lot of things. It's right here, down the bottom. And all three of those cities served as trade centers. So what does it mean if it's a trade center? What's happening at that city? If we're trading things. So let's say I live in Italy and I want to trade something with Egypt. How am I going to do that? What am I going to do? What? No, not like actually selling things. How am I going to do it? Where am I going to go? Halfway. No, to a trade city, a city where you can trade things, which is what it means. It served as a trade center, which means it's a place where they trade things. It created access to the Middle Eastern markets, so the Middle East, and they were all republican governments, so they were ruled by elite families. It might not work. Just type it. It's 4 letters. I've been copying and paste this whole thing. That's good. Maybe it works for some of you, but not all. It is right in front of your guys' face up there, so it might be easier to just type it out. I don't know. We'll see. Are we good on this one? Do we need a little more time? Okay. Good? Okay, here we go. Next one. So we're doing a quick check-in for numbers 1 and 2. So what is the Renaissance? Where did it begin and why did it begin there? You know what? I don't want to do these. Skip the box because we don't have time. Ooh, hand sanitizer. Why? Okay, thank you. I mean, you know, it's not a bad gift to get nowadays. So. Yeah. Alrighty, so we're going to skip those boxes just for the sake of time, and we'll just keep going. So you do not need to answer questions there. You're welcome. Next one. This is part number 3. Do you guys still have this one? How art changed? No? I took out some of the sections on your guys' worksheet. Okay, so there's a couple that we're going to skip, but we're going to read through these slides and talk about them a little bit. So just listen to these ones, and then we'll start typing more in a little bit. Understood? Yeah. Okay, so this one, how did art change? The science one is the next one you have? Yeah. Okay, cool. So new art was produced that reflected humanistic change in thinking. So as trade increased and the wealthy became wealthier, patrons commissioned artists to create new works of art. So commissioning means that you ask someone to paint you something or to sculpt or draw something. A lot of the famous artists from back then, someone like Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, but the... yeah, he is. All of them are named after artists, yeah. So they would ask them and pay them to create specific things for the people that wanted those paintings. Medieval focuses of the church and salvation. So this was a section. Paintings or wow, they needed better font on this PowerPoint. Paintings and sculptures were more realistic and focused on emotion. New techniques were used to bring art to life. Do you guys, I don't know what the one on the left is, but do you guys know what the name of this painting is? Mona Lisa. Good, the Mona Lisa, good. The new Renaissance arts started to focus more on individuals and worldly matters. It used to focus on religion. People would draw and paint and sculpt things like the gods of Roman and Greek religions, or God himself, right, for sculptures, and Jesus and things like that. So they used to be more, what's the right word for this? Religious in terms of art, and then they started now drawing more humans and see their emotions and things like that. Did you guys know that the Mona Lisa got stolen one time? I actually read that, or not read, I was listening to a podcast when I was walking my dog the other day about the best art heists, like people going into museums and stealing art. The Mona Lisa was one of the ones that was stolen. It was recovered. I think it was recovered. We'd have to look that up later.
We should watch the video.
It wasn't a video, it was a podcast.
We should listen to the podcast.
Maybe. I don't think it's really appropriate for school, so probably not. There's a reason I listen to it on my walks with my dog, because I'm alone. So, next one, linear perspective, which means that before this, it was just like in front of you, there's a painting. And then they started adding depth to their paintings, which means that they would make it look like there was more stuff in them. So, over on the left, you can't really tell that there's a lot of space in that room, right? It looks pretty full. And then it starts getting to where you have distance in your paintings, like landscapes and things like that. So they started doing different things with their paintings, which was kind of cool. Okay, now I gotta say this word. Sufumatu? Sufumatu. No, Sufumato. I don't know. Anyway, it's where they blur the lines. Kind of. It's where they blur the lines and blend it all together to create the illusion that there's a lot of stuff behind a person. So if you look behind the Mona Lisa, it looks like there's mountains and water and maybe a road back here, right? So they started creating more depth in their pictures. Michelangelo painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. He was born in 1475 in a small town near Florence, which is in Italy. And he's considered to be one of the most inspired men who ever lived, which is like one of the most famous artists to ever have lived. He created the biblical he created the masterpiece of the biblical hero David in 1504, which is this sculpture right here. I don't know what he's holding. A fish. It looks like a fish, yeah. Yeah, that's a fish. Yeah. So Michelangelo created the sculpture, but like, think about it. This is made out of stone. How do you think he got all of those different like creases and yeah, he would use a chisel and stuff, but like, could you do that?
No.
That would be so hard. Although I will, if one of you guys ever one day becomes a famous sculptor, I will go and visit your sculpture, just for you. We'll see. Or your painting, if you have a painting in a museum, I will go visit it. Wow, that's really okay. This most certainly is not a work of Michelangelo, but this realistic depiction of David and Goliath captures the emotion and the feel of Renaissance art. So that's a pretty gruesome image, but it really captures that they tried to catch emotion on faces. They did a really good job of like creating depth, and yeah, it's kind of a gruesome painting. The next one, painting. Michelangelo painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel with 9 different scenes from the book of Genesis in the Bible. Pope Julius paid Michelangelo only a year after he finished David, which was weird because he was a sculptor, not a painter. But this ceiling took him 4 years to finish. Yeah. Huh? Wouldn't that kill him? David and Goliath? I have no idea. That's a biblical thing, like from the Bible, and I'm not gonna lie, I have known nothing about religion. I'm not religious at all. We can talk about that after. So Michelangelo, it took him 4 years, but he painted the ceiling of this chapel. It took him 4 years to do. This, you can still go and see this. This artwork has survived for 700 years or however long it's been. I don't know if there's been an earthquake over there. But you can still go to Italy. I think it's in Italy. We'd have to look that part up too. But you can go visit this. If you look at the picture on the left there, that's a real picture. People are there taking pictures of the ceiling, right? So you can go visit an actual work of Michelangelo, which is really cool. Let's see. Then we've got this picture. This is the separation of light and darkness. I don't know who did this.
Oh, I see how it's dark on one side and light on the other.
Yep. And then we've got, let's see, La Pieta, 1499. This is a marble sculpture. There's a lot of marble sculptures here. So being able to sculpt these has to be so hard. How long do you think it would take these people to make these? Years, probably. They're shiny, and the curves and like the ability to get the creases in the fabric, super cool. And then we've got, just making sure you guys are all still paying attention. Cool. All right. Then we've got, let's see, Moses. This is another statue. They look like horns. And then Leonardo da Vinci. You guys have heard of Da Vinci, right? Da Vinci. He is a true Renaissance man. When we talk about the term Renaissance man, it means that they can do so many different things. They're super talented. So Da Vinci could do so many things. He was a painter, well, in terms of art, not in terms of like, I can run really fast, like just art. So he was a painter, a sculptor, an architect, and an engineer. He was a genius. He painted the Mona Lisa, a portrait of Lisa Gherardini, the wife of a wealthy silk merchant. So this is just some random lady that he painted, and it ended up being one of the most famous paintings in the world. How did he paint it?
Isn't that on a cover or something?
How did it become famous?
Is that on a coin?
I think it became famous after it got stolen, actually, because again, I listened to that podcast. I don't know. I don't remember. I listened to a lot of podcasts, guys. But so as far as I know, it wasn't very famous until it got stolen, and people were like, "Oh, it got stolen," but then it got returned, and they were like, "We're gonna go visit this painting that got stolen," and I think that's how it became famous. I believe.
It was stolen in 1911.
1911 is when it was stolen.
When I looked up,
I'm sure it's probably worth over $1 million.
most of the dollars. So it says, the natural director, Leonardo Da Vinci, Mona Lisa as having the highest ever in terms of value for anything on permanent display at Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Mona Lisa was assessed at, this is US dollars, at $100 million.
$100 million.
On December 14th.
That's a lot. You got $100 million?
And then in 2019 it says it's like 850 million.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's almost $1 billion. There you go. All right, next one. I don't know what this is, but maybe it's a reenactment of him painting the Mona Lisa. Da Vinci also painted The Last Supper, which you guys have probably seen a picture of. It's a work of religious art that is showing Jesus' last meal before his crucifixion. It's this one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen this before.
No,
And then let's see. Da Vinci also kept an enormous amount of sketches showing his wide range and knowledge of human anatomy. So he would draw humans, which is gross, and their body parts. He developed many prototypes for inventions, so he was helpful for inventing things. So the ball bearings that go in a helicopter, like lots of things like that. And then radical. Okay, then there's the quick check, which we're not going to do. What's the next one? How did literature change? Do you guys have literature on yours? The next one is science, right? Okay, well, it would be the next one. So it's not this one. Well, I think the next one is where we start typing again. So what does it mean when I say literature? What does that mean?
they're writing in like
Good.
the scrolls.
Good. Books and plays and things like that.
Oh, I bet you're gonna show.
Shakespeare?
Yeah.
We do talk about Shakespeare this week, yeah. So before the Renaissance, before this whole change of things took place, books were copied by hand. Can you imagine sitting there and you have the Bible in front of you and you have to write it word for word so that someone else can get a copy of the Bible? As many times as he needed to. It was the work of monks, and they mainly copied the Bible. This took 20 years. Oh my gosh. A Bible. Yep. Okay. Maybe it took 20 years to copy a lot of them. I feel like one Bible in 20 years is a long time.
I would believe it.
Yeah. So Chinese wood block painting made book production faster, but still took a great deal of time and resources. So they would take blocks of wood and they would carve them so that it was like a stamp, right? So they would dip it in whatever they needed to print and then they would stamp it on the piece of paper, basically like a stamp nowadays. But that's how they started making multiple copies of things without having to rewrite it each time. That was the start of like a copy machine, right? Johannes Gutenberg forever changed printing in 1455, which greatly sped up the process. What do you guys think he invented? No. A printing press is what it's called. This is what they used originally. So nowadays, if you look over there, right, we have a printer in the corner of the room. I just send a document to the printer and it prints it out. Everything's done for me. They used to have to use a machine that looked like this. That they had to like crank it and it would stamp the correct things on there. But it was so much faster than copying it by hand, right? So this is what a printing press looked like back then. Can you see? So there's the paper up here on the left, and then they would put it down and then push the button or the crank to print it. It is a lot faster than rewriting that whole thing, but they still had to create the original one, the original stamp that was down the bottom, right? And then they could press it on. That's why it's called a printing press, because they would put the printed material there, press it down to copy it onto the page, pull the page out, right? Typewriters came around later. So the guy Gutenberg created the movable type, which meant one could slide a letter into place. So kind of like a typewriter. Pages of letters were then inked and then stamped onto blank sheets to create books. So this is what it would have looked like back in the day. Back in my days. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that old. That's how they used to do it. They make big A's.
How did they make the big A's?
I don't know. They drew it.
Why would they take all that time just to draw an A? Why couldn't they just type out the
I don't have an answer for you, Charlie. Because they were weird. They had to do everything really dramatically back in the Middle Ages. The Gutenberg Bible was the first major book printed using the movable type. This allowed for the mass production of the Bible, which greatly encouraged the spread of Christianity. So mass production is like how books are made now, right? If I write a book and I want it to be produced all over the world, I just send it to the people and they mass produce it, right? They make so many copies of it that it can be spread all over the world. That's what this invention, yeah. So that's what this invention allowed them to do with the Bible, and it helped spread Christianity across the world. Bibles used to be very rare and expensive before this. Soon, they will be cheap and everywhere, which is true. Now you can go, and it's a lot easier to get a Bible nowadays, right? Because it's printed like that. Erasmus. He disagreed very much with those who were unwilling that Holy Scripture translated into vernacular be read by the uneducated, as if the strength of the Christian religion consisted in the ignorance of it. That's a lot of words that just mean that I don't even know.
You think he would be more holy if, like, we did it by hand again instead of by hand? I think that's.
No, he's talking about the uneducated, so he thinks that people that can't read it shouldn't be religious, I think. I believe. I don't know. We'll learn more about him. So this guy is Dutch. He is also a humanist, so he believes more in the individual than religion. He wanted vernacular, which is, okay, no, I lied about what I said earlier. Vernacular, it just means it's written in, like, English better. It's much easier to understand, super easy to read. It's written at a lower level so that it's easier, because back then, not like nowadays where everybody gets educated for free, basically, right? Everybody was not able to learn how to read back in the Middle Ages. So he wanted the Bible to be printed in a way that everybody would be able to read it. Does that make sense? With like, I don't know if it meant pictures or what, but however he wanted it printed, he wanted it so that everybody could read through the Bible. This first happened with Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King Jr. These are very different people. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in the 1900s, helped with the civil rights movement for racism, and was assassinated in 1965. This Martin Luther was born in like the 1400s, and he was a religious person, like a religious leader that created a religion. Okay? Different people. How do we know this stuff? It was written down in like books and things as it happened. So Sir Thomas More was an English humanist. He wrote a book called Utopia, which focused on the perfect society. So he wanted everything to be perfect around the world. He was critical of leaders since the Utopia had no kings and everyone had access to opportunity. So he wanted everybody to be, guys, put away the tech decks. This is the last warning before I will take them. So Sir Thomas More wanted everybody to be like on the same playing field. There were no kings or queens or anybody that was higher than anybody else in terms of their status in the community. Dante Alighieri, anyway, he was the author of the Divine Comedy, marking the ending of the Middle Ages due to a sharp criticism of religion and leadership. Dante wrote Dante's Inferno, which is about the 9 circles of hell. It's a book that gets read in high school a lot about religion and things like that. I've never actually read the book though, but I've heard it's quite good. Paradisio described life. Why did they have it written so weird? It described life in heaven. Purgatorio described life in purgatory, which is down below, right? This is the in-between stage in the afterlife to Roman Catholics. Inferno describes life in hell, which is Dante says that there are 9 levels, and the worse of a person you are, the lower you go down. That's what that book is about too. So the book that a lot of people read in high school, it's like a required reading once you're like a senior in high school, I believe. In certain places, I don't know if it is in Winslow, but they have you read Dante's Inferno, and it describes, and it's literally written in the 1400s, and you have to read that book. Good time. William Shakespeare. We know about Shakespeare. He wrote 37 plays and 154 sonnets that showed Renaissance life. So basically, he wrote plays about what happened in the life of a middle-aged person. Not middle-aged, like 50s, but like the time period. You know what I mean? Anyway. It was inspired by Greek dramas, so he wrote comedies and tragedies. And it was very critical of royalty and used analogies to show the antiquated views of the Middle Ages. So he basically made fun of royalty and the ways that people lived their life in the Middle Ages. The characters often highlight roles of important individuals. So you can kind of pick out like, oh, this character represents King so-and-so, or this character represents Prince blah, 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 sometimes. Quick trick number 4 we're not going to do. I think now we have some that you guys are going to be able to type. All right, so I'll slow down a little bit so that you guys can type some of these out. So the next part, again, I don't know why the PowerPoint has such a weird background, but it says, how did the Renaissance encourage changes in scientific thinking? That's what you guys have next on yours, right? Scientific thinking. So says science before the Renaissance was largely based on myth and then later supported by the church. So these myths came about and then the church would support these myths, not based on actual scientific discoveries just yet, because we didn't really have the science back then to discover things. Nowadays, we have all this technology that helps us discover all these different things. They didn't have access to that. They didn't have that stuff invented yet, right? Challenging the church on what it taught about the world was very dangerous. So if you went against the church back before the Renaissance, it was not good. They did not like that. You would be outcast. I believe that sometimes they even killed people for it, depending on what they did. So it was not good to go against the church before the Renaissance. And then hearsay is the crime of believing or saying something that goes against the church's teaching. So hearsay is basically like, if I go talk behind someone's back, it's hearsay that I have done that. It's kind of what that one means. So don't go behind the church's back and talk bad about them. Okay, I'll give you about 30 seconds to finish this one up. Mm-hmm. Ready for the next one? All right. Next one, the church taught. So they would teach that the earth was flat, that the earth was the center of the universe and everything moved around it, which is not true. What is the center of our universe? The sun. The sun is at the middle, and everything revolves around the sun. Is the earth flat too, by the way? No, it's a circle. Well, it's a sphere. And then dissecting human cadavers was an egregious sin. So we use human. What's a cadaver? Let's be real here. What's a cadaver?
I have no idea.
Any ideas?
Okay,
Don't look it up because you might get weird pictures. A cadaver is a dead body. So human dead bodies that nowadays, when you die, you can donate your body to science and they will use it to figure out different diseases and whatever they want to use your body for, basically. Back then, the thought of like dissecting and like studying a human body was like one of the most outrageous things that you could do. You could be put in jail and killed for it. It was seen as disgusting. It was a sin. It was awful to do that. But now, like, we do surgery. People donate their bodies to science to help with cancer research, all kinds of things now. But back then, it was like one of the worst things that you could do to dissect the human body. So the first people that kind of started wanting to learn about medicine and how the human body worked were very outcast because they were seen as disgusting for wanting to even go near a human body. Does that make sense? A dead human body. Then they have one way to cure disease was through fasting and prayer. So in order to cure yourself of a disease, you would not eat and you would pray about it. Diseases were punishments from God, so they believed that if you got sick, it was because you were being punished by God. And then back then, before the Renaissance, everything happens for a reason and should not be questioned. So whatever happens to you, you can't question it. It's just because it should be the way it is. All of these things were taught by the church back before the Renaissance happened, and then people started getting their own ideas of, no, that's probably not right. Does that make sense? Because a lot of these things we don't believe in nowadays at all. We don't believe that God punishes people by giving them diseases. That would be kind of sad. We don't believe that the earth is flat in the center of the universe. So a lot of these views started to change once the Renaissance happened. Although at first, going against the church was bad. They didn't want if you questioned the church, they would come after you. Ready for the next part? So a new wave of scientists changed how humans viewed the world in the Renaissance. This was called the scientific revolution. So they started to actually like look into science and not just believe everything that was told to them. We're getting there. Almost done. Well, not almost done, but almost done with the class for today.
Are we gonna do this tomorrow?
I have to look at what our assignment is tomorrow. It depends on how much time we have tomorrow. All right, next part. Nicholas Copernicus. He challenged the church and their view on Earth and how it's the center of the universe. He believed that the sun was the center of the universe, but the church thought that the Earth was. So he was one of the first people to propose that the sun is actually the center of the universe and not the Earth. So he went against the church. Do you think that went well for him?
No.
I don't know exactly what happened to him, if they did execute him or put him in jail or anything, but going against the church was just not great at that point, right?
It's like they were forced to do
Hmm?
it. It's like they were forced to do it.
They probably were, yeah. The next part we have, okay, so that's a picture of it. We'll skip that one. Oh, wait. This is called the heliocentric theory. Helio means star, centric means center. So this is the new theory that the sun, that's why it says sol, that's a sun in Spanish, I think. I think, I don't know, let me see. Let me look it up. So this is the theory that the sun is the center of the universe. So these circular lines, or the circle lines on the outside, are the paths that the Earth takes and all that stuff, and the different planets. And sol does mean sun in Spanish, so this is a Spanish. I don't know why I said Spanish, but yeah. Sun is the center of the universe. Okay. Next one. Johannes Kepler. He used mathematics to prove that Copernicus was correct. So he helped prove that the sun was the center of the universe. Also, planets don't orbit in complete circles. They orbit in ellipses, which is more like an oval than a circle. Ellipses, same thing. Close enough. So the sun is the middle of the universe, and planets don't just go in a circle. They kind of go in like an oval type of shape, not just in a circle around the sun. I think so. All right. Ready for the next slide? Okay, cool. So notice that these are not just circles. They're more of an ellipse than a circle when they go around the sun, right? More of an oval shape. Look at all that math right there. That's some fun stuff. That is math, if you don't believe it.
Can you do that?
Not anymore, but I used to be able to.
What is it?
That's calculus. I took that my senior year of high school, so it's been 8 years.
Hard?
Yeah, it is. That's the hardest math class I ever took, and I am very good at math. So,
Like when it gets closer, it's like the summertime gets further, it's the wintertime.
Yep. Next part, we've got Galileo. Have you guys heard of Galileo?
Yeah.
He agreed with Copernicus about the sun being the center of the earth, and he further proved his theory because he invented the first telescope. And he used it to discover other planets. He used it to discover Jupiter's moons, Venus, and the fact that they do orbit the sun. So he invented the telescope that helps everybody look into space nowadays. We have obviously made it better since then, but he created the very first one, which is pretty darn cool. Alrighty. About 20 more seconds. I want to try and get through the scientific one, and then I think we'll finish the other two tomorrow. Because we're going pretty quick through it, right? Good. Next slide. Oh, wait. All things fall at the same rate of speed. That's physics right there. So if I drop a pencil and a eraser, they fall at the same speed. Yeah. Oh, those landed at the same time. So did those. You threw those ones.
I know.
So most things fall at the same speed. I feel like we should test this with. Maybe we'll do that after this. We need to test it with something heavy and something light. I feel like a bowling ball and a feather. No, do not drop your thing in here. No, we'll go outside and do something in a little bit. We'll find something heavy and we'll do it outside. Okay, sit down. We're gonna keep going. Our next one, the one that Dallin has been so excited about, is Sir Francis Bacon. He did not invent bacon. However, he did change how we approach this field of science. He created a method to test theories about science. We call this the scientific method. We use the scientific method all the time. You guys will use it in your science classes at the junior high and the high school all the time. Scientific method. You guys have heard of it, correct?
No.
What? Some of you guys have.
I've never heard it.
Oh my gosh. The scientific method is where you come up with a hypothesis. So you come up with a guess about something scientific. You come up with a way to test it. Then you actually do the test on it. The next step of the scientific method is to write up the results, figure out what the results of your test were. And the last step is to write a conclusion about your results. So the scientific method is just kind of the steps of testing something scientific. A lot of the time we use it in chemistry.
It's your idea. On the slide. It seems like the way it says.
Yeah.
Do I turn it in a little bit?
No, you're not done yet.
No, I finished the science.
Well, we're not done yet. We're going to finish tomorrow. The next one, the scientific method. Whoa. First, you make an observation.
Second, you ask questions to the professor.
Mhm.
Third, you make a hypothesis. Fourth, I think it is.
Okay, so first make an observation. Are we good with that one?
Then
Then you ask a question that will be the subject of the research. Yeah. You guys know how I've talked about how I also did a whole research project thing? This scientific method is something that I used. First, I made an observation about something that I wanted to test. Then I asked a specific question about what I wanted to test. And then I made a hypothesis. I guessed about what I thought I might find, what my results might be. And then I did the actual experiment. I tested my hypothesis. And then I wrote a conclusion about the results that I got in my research.
did you know informally the exact same time is actually not true because if you throw a trash bag out of a plane and then a bowling ball will fall.
How do you know?
Because the trash bag can open up and it's flat.
Well, we're gonna go test some things out outside. We'll do it. We'll see. Okay. Are we good on this slide? Do you need another couple minutes? All right. So Isaac Newton, how far down are we in this slide? Then things.
We still have like a couple more things to go. There's like 4 more slides after that. I don't remember that. Like for
Isaac Newton is the last one.
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna finish Isaac Newton really quick. Sir Isaac Newton discovered gravity. He further confirmed that all matters fall at the same exact speed. Yeah. He also discovered inertia, which is that objects at rest will stay in rest, and objects in motion will stay in motion unless something, gets in the way of it.
Like a chair.
So yeah, if you're thinking about a car, right? If you push the gas on a car, well, first, if you put the brake on a car and it's just sitting there, Charlie, we will test it later, not right now.
But this stopped it.
Charlie, we will test it later. I have to finish this so people can go places.
Okay.
So, if you're thinking about a car, if you put on the brake, that object, the car, is at rest, right? It's stopped. It will not move unless someone puts some sort of force on it, which in this case would be pushing the gas, right? The accelerator. When you put that car and you push the gas, as if you push the gas and you don't change anything, it's just going to keep going and going and going unless something gets in the way. So you either take your foot off the gas, or you hit the brake, or you hit something, right? That's how something stops. I'm aware. Can I finish my sentences? I will send them in a minute. What, guys?
It's like potential energy. And what is the other?
Yeah, different types of energy, yeah. Lonnie? Did you have a question? Oh. Okay, so, there is a nice diagram. Okay, we're going to stop there. Tomorrow we will finish this up with how religious thought changed during the Renaissance, and the other last one is the government, how the government changed during the Renaissance. So, those of you that are online are good to head out. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for sticking around. That was a long lesson. Those of you in orchestra, pack up.